How's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? Hopefully well. Hopefully well. Let's see. I think everything's set up. We'll just give it a little bit of time to give it a little bit of time for everybody to join that wants to join. Then we'll start into the news. I have not gotten to watch any of the Rocket League, but I actually do plan to, so don't ruin any for me. I have been super busy. I actually didn't. I have one video completely scripted that I think is going to be fun because there's a lot of production that's going into it that I put a lot of time into. I didn't get to record it because it involves using my children, and sometimes recording them can be trying at best, especially when you have an idea and you're trying to actually get it to happen. But we're working on it. We're working on recording that part of it. So was busy doing that. Plus, we had park. We had to be at the park for a couple hours. So it's on my watch list. It was a beautiful weekend here. It was an absolute beautiful weekend. Now, it just started like an hour ago downpouring, so it went from beautiful to, yeah. Define comeback. Did the boomerang change course? Did the boomerang start nearer where it was thrown than the furthest distance it traveled away from me? The answer would be yes. Did it come back to where I did not have to move and I could catch said boomerang? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's levels to that. Um, some were really close. Some were really close. But my gosh, those people online that make it look easy, where they're just like, and then they come and get, not me, not me. We got some that were close to a circular flight path. In fact, some were a little too tight, which caused it to miss coming back. But yes, we were getting kind of a circular flight path. Another problem that we had is it wasn't windy, but since we didn't have heavy boomerangs, sometimes the wind was a little bit difficult. But I mean, we definitely got it to do boomerangy things for sure. Um, it it was not down to us catching it and throwing it again. Not yet, but no, that's next weekend. I feel like mastering a boomerang can only take one weekend, really. All right, so we don't have a whole lot of going on in we don't have a whole lot that went on in security. So we're going to go really quickly through security. We have a lot of stuff in AI. I'm going to have to rework how I do AI because I decided we would do an AI section, and then the AI section got really out of control, like to the point where I scrapped like a half of the AI articles, and we're gonna go over really, really briefly a lot of them anyways. So I'm gonna have to try to work really hard to get like just the really important ones. but it was tough because a lot of this stuff is stuff that we've talked about before. So, um, yeah, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's tough. Um, so we'll try to go through that. And then I don't have an article for the end of today because my brother-in-laws are coming over for dinner. So I'm going to try to get out of this a little bit early. And other than that, we'll jump into it. We will jump into it. All right, let's start with security. This is probably a pretty classic one, but NVIDIA's AI software was tricked into leaking data. I thought I would post this for you all. I find it kind of funny. It's a pretty classic issue with AI. I do believe Russell in Discord gave a place where there was basically a little challenge. I don't think it's active still, but basically a little challenge to get the AI to divulge sensitive information, which was pretty cool. And was an interesting take on prompt engineering. So that's basically what this is doing. So yeah. This one I thought was pretty cool. So initially, I wasn't going to share this one. Traditional malware increasingly takes advantage of ChatGPT for attacks, but it's actually pretty cool. So a while ago, I considered myself a hacker, and I played around with making just like random things to test and play around with, which some of those were ones that were like self-mutating to avoid detection. And that's actually what they used ChatGPT here to do. So what happens is that the okay, actually this one's a little bit different one. This is actually around squatting on domains that can cause security risks. So basically this is just regular things trying to get people that type chat GPT wrong. The other one, we'll talk about the other one. There's another interesting cybersecurity thing. Maybe I put it in the bucket of AI stuff, which is what I'm guessing. This one's around like between November 2022 and 2023, we noticed a 910% increase in monthly registrations for domains related to ChatGPT. So basically, there's a lot of malicious domains around that trying to trick people into giving them stuff, which is not the one that. Yeah, that must be in the. So I'm just going to cover it here. Forget the text here. One of the interesting ones that I saw, because it pertains to security, although it's also AI. One of the interesting ones that I saw, and I will still post the link when it comes up. What was interesting about it was that a lot of self-mutating things to avoid detection, which you can also do with like memory padding and stuff, where you try to keep your memory footprint from being the exact same, so you can't detect it by patterns in memory. You'll have different ways the code can run, and the code can look differently each time it moves. But there was limited number of ways to do that. And what these people were doing was actually calling ChatGPT when it executed to get sections of code so that it had chunks of code that did random stuff that ChatGPT put in that hid its code signature, which was pretty cool. So I don't know. I will get you guys the link. It should have been in security. It's obviously in the AI section. That's my bad. But I thought it was pretty fascinating. Barracuda had a pretty big hack on its ESG appliances. These are its email security gateways. If you are using them, they have to be replaced. Basically, it was the encryption key on the device that was stolen, and so basically there is no way for them to fix it. You have to get a new appliance immediately. So if you have an ESG from Barracuda, you should contact your sales representative immediately. Another, I don't know that any of us use Move It file transfer, but just another reminder that no matter how good you are at security, you're going to be hit by a 0-day, and that's why it's so important to be vigilant. Yeah, just again, 0 days happen all the time, and there's nothing you can do. That's why layers of security, zero trust, all those types of things matter so much. All right, that was it for security. We're gonna get into cloud. I'm gonna step into some just things that have been happening, and I don't know your stance on the sides of this. I'm going to give you my stance, maybe for better or for worse. But there has been quite a bit of stuff happening in the Reddit space. I'm not on Reddit very much, but there is a whole protest going on. Major Reddit communities will go dark. And basically what's happening is that a lot of companies are like Reddit, needing to get paid and not necessarily making enough money. And Reddit gets paid by advertising. And another thing that's happening is machine learning algorithms are taking their data for free, using their API. So a lot of stuff's happening. But it also means that very popular Reddit apps won't be feasible anymore. Basically, the data, the cost, which I guess it comes down to about $1 per user, is too much. It is effectively $1 per user. So anyways, that is happening. I would love to know your guys' perspective on it, because from what I see here, it was like something like 20 cents per thousand. It doesn't seem too bad. I looked up Google Maps, and that seems, cheap. 20 cents per thousand seems pretty cheap compared to Google Maps. Now, Google Maps is a little bit more complicated, but, a lot of people's work goes into making these platforms and these APIs, and they do cost. They incur costs when they're called. There's machines that are hit. There's databases that are hit. So to me, it doesn't seem too bad, but the community is outraged, completely outraged. So maybe I'm missing something, because again, to me, this doesn't seem like a horrible thing, especially if you're building an application. The other warning that I would throw out there is, if you are building an application on somebody else's API, you are at the mercy of their API. So if you're building one of these things, you are literally at that API's mercy. The company could shutter, the company could whatnot. So that's something to be cognizant of. Not necessarily a bad thing, it's just something to be mindful of. They could change their pricing. AWS could right now change pricing on you. Now, they have been really good. Unlike Google, they've been really good about not increasing rates. Google has increased rates on things. Storage is one that I know of. For a fact, they've increased rates on. So this is something to always be cognizant of. I wish that there was a platform that would allow you to just switch to the cheapest cloud automatically, like the Null Cloud will. That should actually be a feature. That should 100% be a feature. I'm marking that down. You should just automatically be able to switch your workloads over to a different cloud to harness cheaper rates. That's an amazing system. Okay, yeah. So just something to be cognizant of, for sure. Let's jump into more cloud news, maybe a little less political. I'm not into Reddit. I see some stuff on there every once in a while, but I'm not a big Redditor. I don't have an account. Or do I? Let's get into the rest of the news. Oh, yeah, Google needs that money. Good point. Google needs that money. It's just a little startup and doesn't have Amazon backing like AWS. That's right. Reddit definitely doesn't need the money. Reddit definitely doesn't need the money. They are so swamped with cash. Last I heard, they definitely weren't about to go bankrupt. I actually have no idea about the backing of Reddit, but I do believe it's not backed by a huge corporation. I have no idea. All right, let's talk about AWS. Let's talk about AWS since you brought it up. AWS Control Tower launches 28 new proactive controls. So today we're excited to launch excited to announce the launch of 28 new proactive controls in AWS Control Tower. This launch enhances AWS Control Tower governance capability. So if you're using Control Tower, if you're trying to use it for your compliance, which is what a lot of people do use it for, it now has 28 new proactive controls for things like OpenSearch, AWS auto scaling, SageMaker, API Gateway, and RDS. Pretty cool. I don't know that I need to say a whole lot more about that. The Falcon 40B foundational model from ITII available on SageMaker Jumpstart. So SageMaker is their machine learning platform. If you didn't know what it was, that's what it is. If you're trying to do machine learning, then awesome. So the state-of-the-art Falcon 40B foundational model from the Technology Innovation Institute, the TII, that's what I like to call them, is available on SageMaker. So we'll talk more about Falcon in a little bit. There's another story on it in the AI realm. But it's a pretty good 40 billion parameter LLM. And it's under the Apache 2 license, which is pretty awesome. Maybe it's one we'll use for our AI for Twitch alerts, but we'll see. Yeah, so that's available in SageMaker. Pretty good. Amazon. I practiced this before this started, and then it's still, I see it, and I want to say it's Athena. I'm pretty sure it's Athena. I always want to think that there's something that, because I want to say it's Athena, but I think it's Athena. But I don't know. English isn't my native language. Binary is. That's right. Amazon Athena for Apache Spark now supports custom Java libraries. I don't know if this is helpful to anybody. I don't write custom Java libraries, so it's not helpful to me. So there's that. Let's jump into Google Cloud. All right. No, I don't want your stupid survey. TMI, shifting down, not left. We're going to talk about this because if I was going to react to a blog post today, it would be this right here. But let's talk about other things that they did here. They have the global external HTTPS load balancer and cloud CDN. CDN is actually an interesting topic I would love to talk to people about. Thinking about building a cloud, there was one service that I realized I didn't really have, which was a CDN. I've never made a CDN before, so that's something that we're going to have to dig into as a team, maybe later this year or next year, because I've never even thought about how I would do that. So that's actually pretty cool. But this, there's another article on this external global external HTTP load balancers that we're going to talk about. Dataform is now generally available. So we talked about Dataform a little bit ago, but Dataform offers an end-to-end experience to develop, version control, and deploy SQL pipelines in BigQuery. Basically, it's Dataform is almost, you could think of it as the Git of SQL in GCP. That's a little bit of a simplification of it, but that's kind of what it's aiming to be, is being that CI/CD of your version control and CI/CD, maybe all of it wrapped into one. So it's your Git and GitHub actions of your BigQuery. It's actually pretty cool. I've played around with it a little bit. I think that concept is a pretty cool concept for that. The other company, and I called them out for doing this, PlanetScale, does something super similar, which I think is just fantastic. It allows you to have branches of your database and everything. And I called PlanetScale out for it because it was innovative, and I think like it's something we haven't innovated in for a long time. Like our SQL databases, we have these scripts that just like upgrades them, and if they fail in production, oh crap. And we test in anyways. I think it's a great thing that is out there. All right, so public preview of front-end mutual TLS support on Google Global External HTTPS Load Balancer. So this is what our article in a second is going to be talking about. But this front-end, this mutual TLS authentication is pretty good. So mutual TLS is basically, a lot of times with TLS, classic TLS, it's the little lock icon in your browser that's saying that you have a secure connection to a known host. Mutual TLS, for the people that don't know, is where you get that both ways, where you're talking to hey Panos, how are you doing? It's good to see you. Where you're talking both ways. And so where each party, the client and the server, both have a TLS, mutual TLS handshake. So both parties have a well-known certificate. So not only does the server know who you're talking about, the client does as well. And I use client loosely there because in like a data center, you know, the server and client could still both be servers in theory there. It's the requester versus the requestee. And then if you're talking about WebSockets inside of, don't do WebSockets inside of data center. Please don't. I'm being serious, actually. Don't do that. I'm sure that somebody's going to pipe up with an actual use for that inside of a data center. I don't think that there's an actual use for that inside of your data center. I'm almost positive there isn't. yeah, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Okay, we'll move on though. Security Command Center Premium is their risk management and security platform. It is now generally available. So we talked about this again when it first went into preview, but it's now generally available. So that's good to know. Trying to convince Panos, trying to convince everybody that AI is not intelligent yet. Yeah, Panos, that is a great topic. It's really... All right, I have some an AI section. Let's talk about that in the AI section. I didn't used to have an AI section, but it turned out that we needed to because there was a lot to cover. I need to make a real video on it because I feel like there is so much political misleading about it. And you know what? I couldn't say that a company like Google doesn't have something in the dark corners of their realm. Something that is much different than what we have. But what they have publicly, what BARD is, what these large language models are, they're not intelligence at all. They are a set of instructions that are purposefully fuzzy, that give you purposefully fuzzy results. And it's not intelligence. It's a black box that you feed instructions into and you get something out of, which is completely different from intelligence. You know what? I really need, I think maybe I need to make a video on it. I need to do some research though, before I do that, but I definitely need to make a video because, yeah. All right. Let's talk about shifting down. Shifting down. What does shifting down mean? Well, shifting down... It's interesting. I didn't even realize this had been posted on June 8th, but I saw something from Kelsey Hightower talking about developers shouldn't shift left. And shift left, if you don't know, means shifting stuff to developers. And I think that's a very dangerous game. Because a lot of these big companies, when they talk about these things, earlier today, I spotted people on Twitter stating ChatGPT 4 seems dumber this week. The bubble is already bursting. So, Panos, I would encourage you. A lot of our chat happens on Twitch. I know you're on YouTube. I know that I live stream this simultaneously to my secondary YouTube channel, which has had almost zero love, which maybe I need to do more love to. I encourage you to join on Twitch if you don't mind. You don't have to. You're more than welcome to. A lot of the chat happens there on Twitch, though. You're more than welcome to join from wherever you are. I obviously have Twitch chat open. But you guys are sidetracking me. We'll get more into AI. And you know what? I'm gonna have to make some more videos on it. I'm gonna have to make some more YouTube videos on it. It's not my next couple YouTube videos, but I'm going to designate some time. Actually, next Saturday, guys, if you want to join, we are going to do the AI showdown. So I need to make my AI coding tools video, and we're going to run through all the tests that I've been working on live on stream. So if you want to do that with me, it's something I've needed to do, and I was going to do it as a hermit, but I'm going to do it with you guys. So if you want to join me next Saturday, I will do it live on stream, and we'll run through all the tests with all the coding tools that we can think of. Again, Panos, you don't need to join us on Twitch. I will give you the Twitch, though, just in case you want to. But again, that's up to you. All right. Yeah, so I have a couple opinions on this. The first part is taking advice from Google. And one of the things that you have to be careful about advice from Google, if you read far enough down into this, it talks about how Google has teams of people that abstract all these problems away from their other developers. Dedicated Google teams support these critical platforms. And the problem with trying to replicate Google is that most teams aren't the size of Google. Maybe Reddit, as we've talked about, maybe Reddit is, because they're just swimming in cash from their greedy API. Maybe Reddit, but the problem that I see so many teams happen is they read what Google does and they try to replicate it in their 20-person engineering team, their 10-person engineering team. And that's the problem. Now, what Google is saying here with their shift down, my interpretation of this entire article is rely more on GCP, is buy into more of their product stack, which is why maybe I'm taking a pretty hot take on this, but I think that this was one of the worst sales pitches ever. It kind of sat sour for me because it was shifting left is for suckers, shift down instead. Now, Russell here said, shifting security left is the funniest. Half of devs are so under pressure they don't write enough unit or integration tests, let alone security ones. And that is actually a really good point, I think. One that I hadn't thought of. I think that it's really important for developers to be aware of security and security flaws in code. But it's a really good point that our developers are overburdened at best, as it is, and generally are rushing features. I know that we talked about what I call the holy triangle of you can have features, you can have a time, or you can have quality. Pick two, not one. And really, it needs to come to you can have features or you can have a timetable. Quality shouldn't be the thing that suffers. You have to pick quality. Now tell me which one. Do you want to tell me the features or do you want to tell me the timetable? If you want to released in July, then the features are all on the table. All of them are. Because quality can't be sacrificed or shouldn't be sacrificed if it's something you're shipping. And part of quality would be your security. How many tests, how many integration tests, and things like that. So that's a really good point, Russell. I know Panos is probably the best person at writing tests that I know. He writes some of the best tests that I have ever seen. Yes. Yes. Panos does some great work for the open source in tests. Um, but every company picks features over time and quality as there's a mindset to be first to the market. Yeah, everybody does pick features and time. They set the features and when to release them. You're right, they do. I've been a little bit guilty of that too. Um, it's a hard one. You want to get something out there. You have an idea of what the minimal set would be, and so in my opinion, I feel like the very first like 2 months you can do that. Let's get this out there. Let's see what people think about it in a pre-alpha. Let's get 200 people on it. Then you need to start, okay, people actually like it. Now we need to understand what we need to be production ready. We need integration tests. We need end-to-end tests. We need, better unit tests for logic, business logic, and things like that. I think that this is actually a really good topic to go in depth in, and to dive, because we have the test-driven development group of people, who are going to push, you can't even write code until you have a test, which I don't quite understand the purity test-driven development. But you've already been hacked at that point. Yeah. but I do get the I think this is something we should dig into more. I have opinions, but I am also open that it's a thing we should have more like a panel discussion on at some point, I think. Actually, you, Russell, Panos, and I should have a panel discussion on it, because I think that would be really interesting. I think Panos sides much more on the test, like the purity test-driven development side. I think I'm like maybe a mediocre in the middle of everything, which maybe isn't actually even good. And I think you're also more of a test-driven development person. And I think I'm probably in the middle. You will represent chaos. Okay. Okay. Forget the panel. Another new thing. I knew that you didn't mean chaos testing, because I love chaos testing. I will be one of the first people to push chaos testing. I think that's great. Every company should allow children into their infrastructure. That's what they should do. Just give children admin privilege in their stage, and just let them learn the command line. Not only is it educational for the children, it's educational for the systems. All right. New crypto mining protection program offers 1 million for costly crypto mining attacks. So I think this is really cool. Actually, this is something that I've been calling for, and actually, this is an AI thing that we will get into. When Tesla says they have full self-driving, I have said I will trust their full self-driving as soon as they offer to pay for any damages done while and take full responsibility while their AI is driving. Now, this is a little bit different than this. This is just a crypto mining protection program. Google Cloud is trying to make you comfortable that there have been times when accounts have been hacked and people mine crypto, and Google tries to shut those down, and now they're offering some protection to those attacks, which is really, really cool. It gives you a little bit of peace of mind. Put peanut butter on all server power. Yeah. That's the children chaos factor. So they're putting a lot of work into detecting crypto mining attacks and protecting you from them. So I think this is really cool, and a nice thing coming from a cloud. So Now, before we get into Azure, we'll talk about Azure outage in Brazil was caused by a typo. So Azure DevOps, which somebody in this channel has talked so highly about, was down for over 10 hours. And supposedly, this whole thing was because of a single typo in a script. Yes, it's Russell. Russell really likes their DevOps. I don't talk badly because I don't know enough about their DevOps to say that whether it was good or bad, but we have heard quite a bit about it. Now, this reminds me of a 2016 of AWS that went down. So in 2016, the entire AWS infrastructure went down for like a day, and it was because of a a typo in one of their scripts in a standard everyday procedure, and there was no barrier on the person couldn't run that script that way. Now, it only went down in Brazil. This was much smaller than the 2016 AWS incident. Basically, in 2016, the script was to reboot a number of servers. And it was actually very standard practice to, in the morning, reboot, I don't remember, 1,000 machines. And they accidentally did 10,000 machines, which took down the whole system. And so this was very similar. An update script was run. There was a typo in it. It brought down the entire system for 10 hours. So let's move on to some. Oh, the Facebook BGP. Oh, I forget. They were down for a while. They were down for an absolute while. I believe it was like a day, wasn't it? Wasn't it? By a day, I mean like 8 or 9 hours. I meant like a working day. It was a little while, wasn't it? Some of those errors can be really hard to recover from because those errors cause other systems that you rely on to fail, which cause. I'll tell you guys a story about this. So like they're called metastable errors, and basically the idea behind them is once you have them, you actually have to get stuff in more than just a working state because they've happened. And there's a whole range and variety of metastable. They're very classic in like network and consensus things where the consensus won't recover even if it gets back to, the thing that's caused the error. Retry floods is the classic example in networking. But there's even more than that. Retry floods, and that's why you have like jitter. You have like libraries to jitter and to stage retries and things like that, and retry backoffs. All of those are coming from this idea of metastable errors. But I think it goes even more into things like there was this thing in Kubernetes where kubeadm, a tool to create Kubernetes clusters, wanted to host the Kubernetes control plane inside of Kubernetes. And this worked amazingly well and was really good, except if all your control planes rebooted. And then there was just nothing. It had these problems where if there was a very specific problem, there was a lot of work to intervene. You couldn't just turn those machines back on. That wasn't the fix. Basically, the only fix was a lot of manual intervention and not easy intervention. So it's really important to keep these ideas in mind when these things happen. And some of these are just unavoidable. So in building the Null Cloud, there's going to be services that we make. Let's say we make a Postgres service that provides PostgreSQL to our consumers. Well, we ourselves could use the Postgres service for our database. It's dog fooding, plus it's also just convenient. We need a Postgres database, so why not use our own Postgres database? The problem now comes is if our Postgres database service goes down, so do other services that go down. But those services could be dependent on other services as well. And so bringing them all back up could be very painful because you could have these services that depend on each other. So bringing them up, you need to just be careful about that, I guess would be my point. And is why sometimes these take a while to fix. They're not a simple, easy, straightforward fix. Honestly, honestly, these clouds have some of the most complexity you'll ever see, from the machine managing the machines all the way to the service. Honestly, I'm impressed with a lot of these large clouds with how fast they get some of these problems resolved. It's a complicated stack with a ton of teams. All right. Azure Virtual WAN now supports full mesh secure hub connectivity. So we talked about some of Azure's routing, and so this is just an expansion to their routing. So now you have full mesh. You the virtual WAN now supports their full mesh secure hub connectivity around their firewall solutions. So that's pretty good. I don't use these products, so I can't talk much more on them. This sounded really good, but I'm going to be super brief. General availability of their inbound ICMP pings and trace routes are now supported on Azure load balancers. So ICPM v6 pings and trace routes on the Azure load balancer. Basically, if you're going to receive one of these, it's now supported on Azure load balancers instead of failing. So my assumption at this point is if you tried to do a ping or trace route on IPv6 on Azure load balancers, it would fail. But it is now supported for those of you looking to support IVP6 more fully. A lot of people are trying to go full stack with it, which is good. A public preview, Azure Front Door Standard Premium, is now in Azure Government. So if you're a part of the Azure Government and have been leveraging Front Door in other aspects, it's now supported here. Now supported in Azure Government. If you don't know what Azure Front Door is, Azure Front Door is the thing that does like your certificate management for TLS and things like that. And no one is trying to support IPv6. There are some people that actually have to, but I do believe there's some military and government contractors that have to. But yeah, for the most part. General availability, private link support for application gateway. So basically, private link is a way to have this private network, private communication between things, and they especially a lot of times private links are used between clouds and or between you and your customer, providing private access to a private set of APIs. So you could have like your public APIs, and then you could have your like APIs for those select few customers. That's what this is for. The other thing you can do is like, hey, if you're providing a database, you can provide private link or there's VPC sharing. I wouldn't use VPC sharing, but that's like a thing in AWS that you could use where you could provide that private communication to the database or your API. For this specifically, it's application gateway, which would be your API, not a direct database or something like that. But you get the point. And that's it for cloud. Did I miss anything? Did you guys see anything else in the cloud news? All right. Give me just 1 minute. I need to reorganize. I just want to clarify that my tabs are in order for the AI. We're going to rush through a bunch of them, but we're going to talk very specifically about a few of them, which is what I want to make sure. The few are at the front, and then we're going to kind of go quickly through some of the other ones. Actually, I do have a few things that we could talk about coming out of GitHub. Probably should have been in the cloud news. Was kind of in the general topic there, but we'll talk about them really quickly before we jump into the rest of the content. All right, let's jump into GitHub really quickly. Announcing stale repo action. So if you have a bunch of repos and you don't know which ones people are still actively using, this is a GitHub action that is going to help you with that. So it's something you can look into, especially if you have a lot of open source. If your organization has a lot of open source, there's other ways people deal with this, as well as it's not that big of an issue for most people. But it is nice to know if you have stale repos. Security enhancements to required approvals on pull requests. So required approvals on pull requests is a thing that is out there. But there's a lot of important changes to what it means for a pull request to be approved. If you use pull requests with protected branches, there are some important security improvements rolling out that may impact your workflow. Merge commits created locally and pushed to a protected branch will be rejected if the contents differ from the system-created merge. The branch protection for dismissing stale reviews now dismisses approvals whenever a merge-based changes after a review. So basically, what this is talking about is like if I give approval, but then you make another commit and push it, even if you squash that, so it's still in a commit, it's going to check what that original merge looked like. And if it doesn't look like that, then it's still going to get rejected. So that's actually pretty cool that you can't slide something by it that way. A pull request approval now only counts towards the pull request if it was submitted against. I don't understand this one. A pull request approval now only accounts towards the pull request it was submitted. I would hope that this was always the case. I didn't know that there was a way around this. Okay, so that's terrifying. I could get a pull request approval for something and count it towards something else. Interesting. Well, user-created merges must have the same content. Okay, so then they go into how they did this. I think this was interesting. That's the one that I kind of read about. But yeah, pretty cool. And then highlights from Git 2.41. So new Git version is out there. And it has a bunch of improvements. We're not going to go over them. I need to hurry up. I am almost out of time as it is. We got to jump into AI. Let's talk about the most important topics of AI. This is the one that I already talked about a little bit that was in security but wasn't in security. Basically, it creates better mutating malware. And at first, I thought that the creators were using ChatGPT to create the malware, but that's not true, in fact. What they're doing is using ChatGPT to create new stints of code that run to evade detection by EDR. Basically, EDR is looking for common paths of code flow. They're looking for the same type of things that it does. And so they're evading what we currently have for EDR by actually asking the ChatGPT API to write some code to fill in some blanks to basically mutate on the fly. It's actually pretty cool. I thought that this was kind of brilliant because it makes it more dynamic than what a lot of these had used beforehand. I'm gonna post this link just in case somebody wants to read it. All right. Another thing I found really interesting was this. Size Dynamics announces largest fully customized vector unit for the RISC-V or RISC-V. This is pretty cool. So if you guys don't know what a vector unit is, it's basically the big thing. It's not the exact same thing as a GPU core, but it is a vector unit. There's usually several of them in a vector core, which is kind of what a GPU is, very, very high level speaking. And you can think of it as the thing that really is leveraged in machine learning. So when you're talking about a vector unit here, this is actually a big step for machine learning on RISC-V. So when you're thinking about using GPUs, this is really what you're leveraging in a GPU to do machine learning. That's what giving you your 64 floating point math, and your integer math, and those big 64-bit things. So that's what they're talking about. And so I thought that this was pretty cool. I thought that this was a pretty big deal for the machine learning. I know that it's hardware and it's RISC-V, but I think it's actually a big deal for machine learning. Machine learning on RISC-V, to be specific. All right. Now, there's also been a lot of talk. There was a Go champion. Go is a game, not the language, that actually resigned after being beat by an AI. And this goes directly to Panos's point. Human convincingly beats AI at Go. Okay? Now, the thing that happened, this human didn't know how to play Go and beat the world champion. And a lot of you are thinking, how did that happen? And what researchers found out was that the bot that beat the champion didn't actually understand the game of Go. It didn't actually know the game of Go. Yeah, pretty startling. It knew how champions played Go. That's what it knew. And because of that, and because it didn't actually understand how to win Go, it was beat by just doing a very minor repetitive task over and over again. Something that is something that when you first start to learn Go, you learn to do. I'm not going to go into how to play Go, its things, whatnot. The funny point is, no one would be beat. Basically, no one would be beat. That it was even an intermediate Go player by what these people did. But what it proved was that the AI didn't know how to play Go. It didn't actually know the objectives of Go, which I think is actually going to go into my video on AI isn't actually intelligent. It doesn't actually know things. It takes inputs and it fuzzy makes outputs. And that's kind of on purpose. Especially for generative. It's actually interesting. On generative, the fuzzy output is actually good. You want it to be a little fuzzy because you want it to be unique each time. You want it to generate something. So you actually make that a little bit fuzzy on purpose. You could actually make it for the same set of inputs, produce the same set of outputs. And then it's literally just if statements that are generated based off of what you input it into. I only brought this up because we were talking about Reddit's starting to charge for API access. Seems like a little bit of hypocrisy from like Google and whatnot, who don't want you to train off of their data but want to train off of everybody else's data. We also saw this with the Internet Archives going down. Pretty sure that was an AI getting trained off the Internet Archives. In the open source world, Hugging Face, the Falcon has landed in the Hugging Face. So we talked about Falcon 40B, which earlier we talked about the Falcon 40B here in SageMaker. So this is now in SageMaker as well. But if you're not a fan of AWS or don't want to give them your money, the Falcon has landed in the Hugging Face ecosystem as well. So the Falcon 40B is the first truly open model, so Apache 2 licensed, and it's also being hosted on Hugging Face. So that's pretty cool. I want to just point that out. I know one was in AWS. It is AWS news. This one's here, but they are tied together. Big tech being a bad actor, shocking. Yeah, it is very shocking that big tech would be a bad actor. I don't know if you know Google, but they would never do anything bad. They swear to it. Just trust them. Trust but don't verify. That's what they'd like. All right. Another thing that came to Hugging Face was this fast text. So fast text is basically a really efficient way of learning information about text. It's not about it's not like a language model, but it's like, hey, what language is this text? Or, you know, how many syllables does this text have? Things like, I don't know about the syllables, but it has a bunch of different things that you can do. But it's very fast at telling you information about the text that was put in, like language. So yeah, you can see here whatnot. So it's now also on Hugging Face. You can use it locally as well, in especially if you like Python. Yeah, that hurt me to say. All right, let's talk about the big news coming from Meta, and it's not the metaverse. I'm shocked. The owner of Facebook, I can't think of his name. He's a lizard person, but I can't think. Maybe he's a robot or lizard person. Can't think of his name. He's surprised that it's not the metaverse. Mark Zuckerberg. Thank you, Russell. That's what it is. Couldn't think of his name. I don't know if he would be excited or upset that I couldn't think of his name, but I might be the only person that has troubles. AI. One of the things that comes out is this reimagining our infrastructure for the AI. I actually, I'm going to post this because I think that this is pretty good. Mark Zuckerberg wishes that he was a Mark Zuckerberg. Really, all Marks do. All Marks do. But this is an interesting read. Basically talking about the infrastructure they're designing to support ML. Which is cool, and it's really cool when you start talking about maybe some of the things that Meta's trying to do with it. So Meta unveiled an AI model for code generation comparable to CodePilot. Now, this system, the Code Compose, is not available from... now, here's a research paper on it. This is a research paper done on it. It's interesting. If you're interested in this, I would read it. But the Code Compose isn't available for us to try. So next Saturday, we're not actually going to give Code Compose. They're not going to enter the gauntlet. I think we'll probably, for the foreseeable future, do once a year, doing an AI coding code off. I think that will be fun. It's going to be this Saturday. I'm actually prepping quite a bit for it. I was going to make a video on it anyways, but we might as well do the thing live anyhow. So that will be awesome. You guys will be helping make YouTube content and educating people in the future. But anyways, I'm hoping that they release this for us to try. Yeah. The last big deal in AI that I saw, and I know I'm rushing these, but I have to get going. Beat NVIDIA in consumer AI by releasing lower power GPUs with lots of memory. Yes. I actually think that that's what they should do for the servers too, because heating and not heating, but cooling them is a problem. So, all right. This was actually interesting. Now, I don't give these systems a whole lot of credit because I have asked a lot of AIs to write me better code, and a lot of times it's worse code or not even what I asked them to write, as you'll see this Saturday when you join me. But they created a new sorting algorithm, which was pretty cool. So there was some optimizations in, it's not a purely new sorting algorithm. There was some optimizations in a sorting algorithm, which was pretty cool. Now, as the reason I brought up the whole Go thing is conquering games such as chess, Go, and StarCraft, we have actually proven in all of these that they didn't actually understand the game. I brought up the one example at the beginning of this to just make my point, but this is actually not true. The same thing goes to StarCraft as well as chess. The AIs didn't actually understand the game they were playing. They were playing a bunch of if statements. If you go here, I will do this, and that will make me win the majority of the time. And we don't understand all of the if statements they have, which can make it very difficult to see through them. But if you do see through them and you do see that, you can 100% leverage those and beat them 100% of the time. The Go player beat the guy, the AI, 9 out of 10 games, and he had never played Go before. He just followed a bunch of simple steps. So, all right. But anyways, they found some optimizations to the algorithms. I don't know how much they didn't come out and tell how much the optimizations were, and I couldn't find an actual official like research paper on it. So I'll be watching this, but I think that optimizing code that humans came up with is actually a really good. So when you come up with a new novel way, working on optimizing it might be a way that our current AIs could help with, because they have a broad understanding of optimizations that have come before it. So Intel came out with something. The thing that I'm just going to point out is that a lot of people have come to do less. They'll talk about your billion parameter, your 59 billion. This came out with as many as 1 trillion parameters. That's a lot. It's cool for specialist applications. That's right, Russell. I agree. Anyways, I found this interesting. If you want to read more about it, it's a lot. It's for scientific purposes, though. It's not your normal LLMs type stuff. This is more scientific research. So yeah, it's a lot of parameters, though. All right, data centers firms keen to diversify AI GPU sources. So we had talked about whether people would train on something other than an NVIDIA GPU, and I found this article, so I thought that I would bring it up because, like, maybe people are trying to diversify sources. Now, sources could just be in your supplier, but it could also be who makes the GPU itself, whether it's all NVIDIA or you're starting to look at your AMDs and Intels, whether it's supply and demand or whatnot. So anyways, I just thought I found the article. I know we've talked about it. I'm bringing it up. OpenAI is being sued by Georgia radio hosts because ChatGPT accused him of a crime he did not commit. Amazing. OpenAI sued for defamation after ChatGPT fabricates legal accusation against the radio host. It's happened twice. Pretty funny. There was like 3 months apart. It's pretty fantastic. This billboard brought tears to my eyes. Hey, ChatGPT, finish this building. Okay, I'm sorry. I had to bring these up. We have a whole section for them. This I felt was kind of sad. The creators of a new game, which is a pretty... I like puzzle games. If you haven't played Firmament, I haven't played Firmament, but I actually liked... So Cyan Worlds created the original Myst. After the original Myst, they came out with a new one just recently. Anyways, it was pretty good. I liked it. I'm planning on getting Firmament as soon as I get a sale on it. Anyways, they came under some attack because they used AI-assisted tools for some of their art. And I thought that was kind of sad. Like, as far as I've understood, the enjoyment of the game, people have enjoyed the game, and they're a very small team. And so a very small team brought something people enjoyed. Whether they used AI tools or not, why should you complain? There's a game out there called Viewfinder. Check it out. It's an awesome concept. Okay, I will. Especially if it's like kind of a puzzle game like Outer Worlds? No. I forget the other game that they came up with. Mystery puzzle game. So. Anyways, I don't know. everybody should leverage the tools that they can to make the content that they can. The thing in the end to me is it's your content. Whatever you use to make it to your standard. If it's not to your standard, don't use it. So if you can leverage an AI and you can legally do it, like whatnot, that's actually one thing that I excluded from this, but maybe I should have talked about, is that Adobe has their new generative AI tooling that they've pushed out. And they are saying that they will pay any legal fees that you get into. So they're so confident that you won't have legal problems that they will cover the legal fees if you use their AI art. And this is where I was getting into, like, if Tesla wants me to use their autopilot, they have to guarantee me that they'll take responsibility for any accidents my Cybertruck gets into, if I ever get my Cybertruck. And I think that that's important. I think that if somebody is taking that, I think Copilot and things like that should take that stance as well. If they want us to have trust in using them, if they want companies to have trust in using them, they're probably going to need to take that stance. All right, well, I will check out Viewfinder. I'd be excited in that. So, but yeah, use the tools that are available to you, and whatever makes you deliver the best product you could deliver, do that. And don't let people get down on you. You know, I will be like, oh, they made a great product, but they wrote it in JavaScript. I'm teasing most of the time. If JavaScript is what makes, I wouldn't do it in JavaScript. And I think it would be better in another language. But if that's what let you get that done, don't let people hold you down for it. Except that it's JavaScript, and I still need a curse word button for the word. All right, let's jump into some interesting things. We all love Rust. We know that. You love Rust. I love Rust. Panos loves Rust. If you don't know who this is, Graydon is somebody who has been... This world has too many gatekeepers. That's right. And you know what? This is something I tell my kids. Listen to people. Learn from people. But at the same time, don't let somebody that, I like constructive feedback. Russell will be the first to give it to me, so will Panos, and I appreciate it, and I listen to it. But at the same time, you can't let people that want to nag you, that want to hate on what you're wanting to do just because they don't like it, you can't let them hold you back. That's just what it is. There are going to be people that give you constructive feedback because they want what's best for you. They see something special in what you're doing, and they want to see it improve. They want to see it carried forward, and you need to latch onto those people, and you need to listen to them. It doesn't mean that you agree with everything that they say, or that, some of my most classic feedback for YouTube videos is they should have more animations. And guess what? I suck at animations, and if I made a ton of animations, it would take me 6 years to make one video. That's just the end of it. So I get the feedback, and I actually know that they're right. More and better animations would be better. I can't do it right now. And so, it's feedback that I take, but I also can't do anything about. Anyways. Yep, don't let people get you down. And so I'm going to have to probably buy this game at full price just so that I support them more, although I was looking for a discount. All right, if you don't know who Graydon is, he was one of the original Rust people. AI animation startup coming. He was part of... I'd like you guys to read this. Now, I don't necessarily agree with Graydon in everything, but I think this is a really fantastic article. And do you know why? It's because his whole statement is, this is a benevolent dictator. Basically, if you don't know what BDFL is, it's a benevolent dictator. And this article is kind of like, should Graydon have been a benevolent dictator? And his statement is, if he had been a benevolent dictator, the Rust we know and love wouldn't be the Rust we know and love. That's why he said, the Rust I wanted had no future. It's not the Rust that we know and love. And I think it's a good read. It's a good read to go with critical eyes. Because if you're the type of person that read the AWS article and think that AWS threw away microservices and serverless, and you read that and that's how you understood that, don't read this article because you won't understand it. Because you've got to be critical about what you're reading and actually try to understand it. I am releasing a video. I have to film my children for that video, so it's taking a little bit more time about that AWS one. But yeah, I think you should all read this because it gives an interesting perspective of the Rust language about where and how it diverged from what Gradon was thinking and how it's mutated to it. It's actually an interesting history of the language itself. Remove the commentary Gradon does on themselves and just look at like the history of how things developed. It was fantastic. I thought it was really cool. So go read it. Stabby is out. Interesting thing. Gradon will even talk about some of the reasons that they don't have a stable ABI. And guess what Stabby has done? Stabby is an ABI. A stable ABI. So this is really, really cool. So some of the reasons that Rust doesn't have a stable ABI initially, he talks about, which is cool to understand, and understand how that evolved. But there is Stabby, and it's at released 1.0. So, cool beans. Oh, this was an article that I was maybe going to read, but I don't have the time, so we're going to move on. Last article was Blue Sky's custom algorithm could be the future of social media. I disagree. But we should actually have it. You know what? I'm going to do this next week. This isn't me reading it and reacting to it. This is me saying this isn't the future of social media. Maybe I should just make a video on that. I just don't think that this solves the social media problem. I actually think this makes the social media problem worse. Basically, what I consider the social media problem is the echo chamber. And if you get to pick the algorithm that only serves you exactly what you want to hear and only uplifts your specific thing, the echo chamber is going to get worse. And so this is like actually maybe the detriment. I don't have a solution to fixing it. I don't think this is it. But that's just my personal opinion. So maybe I'll just make a video on it. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know if people want my opinions on those types of things. I don't know if people would like a video on that. Or is that too controversial? Does it not help people? I don't know. I think the idea of being able to select your algorithm is cool in the idea of searching and things like that. I think that there's some powerful things to that idea. But I don't think that solves the social media problem. I would contend that the classic algorithms do a really good job because they want to serve you more ads, so they want to suck you into the platform. So they actually are probably pretty good at showing you exactly what you want to see. But that's the problem. But you wouldn't pick an algorithm that's worse at showing you exactly what you want to see. So I don't get it. Anyways, I need to get going. My brother-in-laws are here. I was going to say that it's basically asking how much of a fake reality you want to live in. This is my problem with it. I don't know. Do people want... I feel like maybe on my YouTube channel, I do a lot of really educational stuff, but I think I want to start mixing in some maybe educational, but to people that aren't tech people. Going over some of these type of things where it's like, hey, let's talk about what an algorithm could do and why picking your own algorithm doesn't really change the social media problem. That's not really technical, like how to program the algorithm or how to do those type of things, but it's explaining and talking about tech. I've been thinking about doing that. My Amazon blog article is going to be my first one. Now, this is actually hyper technical, but I think was because there was so much confusion in the tech community. So I'd love to know feedback on if you guys would like more of those. because I kind of have been feeling like I compelled to. I don't know, because I also feel like there's a lot with like the artificial intelligence, where there's a lot of propaganda about artificial intelligence and what it's going to do to your job and what it means and things like that. Behind the Curtains of Tech, episode 1, IPv6 will never be used. No, I feel like, yeah, Behind the Curtains of Tech almost is like an appropriate thing. There can be some techie stuff in it, but it's also, you know, more talking about the concepts of tech and what it means. So it's been something I've been thinking about. So anyways, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Have yourselves a fantastic week. I hope you guys enjoyed this news. I hope to see you guys next week, next Saturday, Battle of the Coding AIs. Battle of the Coding AIs. Have yourselves a fantastic week.